Okay, so if you've clicked on this video, then you've obviously clicked for a reason. And you probably clicked because you want to figure out why you cannot stay off these apps. You cannot get off your phone, TikTok or Instagram or YouTube or WhatsApp. This is a huge multi-billion dollar industry, and these companies have a huge incentive to keep you, this person, connected to these apps as long as possible, because the more time you spend on these apps, the more money they make, right? So I would say that we have at least some responsibility to understand how these companies are trying to keep us on these apps for longer. If we can understand how they keep us for longer, then we can reclaim back our time, we can reclaim back our life, and in many ways, everything is better. We make more money because we have more time for self-development, we have more time for our family, and we have more time to pursue our proper interests. So how do these apps, these ones here, keep us connected? That's the purpose of this video. But before we delve deeper into the specific strategies that these companies use to keep us on these apps and on our phones for longer, we need to understand what is it about these apps and phone use that makes it so attractive to us. And I would say that there are three main reasons why we like to stay on our phone for so long, right? And the first reason is, plenty of people will say that being on your phone or going on social media and browsing the internet can be used in a productive manner. And to be fair, I wouldn't disagree with that. We'd all love to think that we are productive when we are online. And what sort of productive use are we talking about? We're talking about connecting with family, right? So if you're on social media, you can connect with family that are far and wide around the world. It can be browsing the internet for research purposes. It can be for writing an essay. It could be for receiving the news. And so we'd like to think that there is some productive use to using our phones and being on social media, and that's fair enough. And the second one is passing the time or time wasting. We don't like to call it time wasting. We like to call it having fun or going on the phone to see if there's anything interesting. So say you come home after a long shift at work, it's 8 p.m, you're tired, you're knackered, you've been out all day. And so you sit down on your sofa to spend some time doing something that is a bit more relaxing. And so you spend time on social media, you scroll for an hour, you scroll for 2 hours, you scroll for 3 hours, and before you know it, your screen time is 6 hours and you barely slept. This is the time wasting aspect. There isn't much productive use in it. Maybe a short amount of time of that would have been productive, but largely it is a time wasting endeavor. And this is what I would say is a bit more of a kind of a blissful ignorance type of use. You're just sort of, you're just using it, you're out in the clouds, you're just scrolling, you're unaware of what's going on. Okay, it's a bit less sinister. The third reason why a lot of us use social media is the seeking of validation. No one wants to say to themselves and want to accept that a big part of social media use is validation. It is easy to point at someone else who's posting stuff and saying, oh, look, this person is just seeking attention. But it's very hard to put that on ourselves. For example, say I've just bought a new car. I've bought a new house. I'm on this luxury holiday and I decide to take a photo next to my new Maserati. Quite frankly, I would question the benefit of that post being online. What benefit has having your car or having your new house or having your happy life on social media brought to other people? There's barely any benefit except for wanting other people to say, oh wow, this car that you've got, amazing car. This new house, wow, you're so rich. Wow, I can't believe you made it. That's amazing, da 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 da. It is largely a kind of validation exercise, even though we don't want to accept that there is some element of that. So I would say that it is probably quite difficult and takes a lot of introspection to accept that some of our posts that we put online do have some validation seeking behavior. And it's important to know that all three of these are reasons why we use social media. That's what makes it attractive. And so these social media companies pry on these three reasons. Okay? They use these reasons to attract us to the apps, to attract us onto buying new phones, to attract us to being connected all the time. And there are some very specific methods that they do target these areas. Now I'll say that there are 4 methods or strategies or tactics that they use. And we're going to go through each one by one. And the first one is the slot machine effect. The slot machine effect insinuates that using social media and scrolling on social media has an incredibly similar resemblance to someone who is gambling. Someone who is gambling, take this person here. They put some of their money into this machine, okay? As they put their money into this machine, they are unsure of what the output is going to be. They know that they can either win some money or they could lose some money. So we'll put positive here, and they could lose some money. So they are unsure of the outcome. And that sort of uncertainty keeps them coming back to this loop. So the person puts some money into the slot machine, they might lose money, and so they say, okay, maybe next time I'll win. And so they go back, they put some money into the slot machine, and then they win something, and they say, oh God, I won something, let me put some more money in. And then so they take some money into the slot machine, they lose the money, and then they want to recoup that money, thinking that that money might come back. Well, scrolling on social media and scrolling on TikTok can actually be even more addictive than that. Even opening just Instagram or opening YouTube can be more addictive than that. And you might ask, how is that the case? Well, if I'm here and I go in and open my phone, in contrary to the slot machine that I put my money in, I know that I will always get something that I like. Whether it will be something that is interesting, whether it's something that is funny, or something that is serious, or something that is sad, I know that if I open TikTok, for sure there will be a video that I like, that suits one part of my personality. The uncertainty isn't whether I'm gonna get something that I like or not, it is how much am I gonna like it at this moment in time. Because I don't know whether I'm gonna get a piece of news, or I'm gonna get something funny, or I'm gonna get something serious. Or it could be that I get all 3. I'm not sure which one or what I'm gonna get. All I know is that I'm gonna get something that I like. And this is where machine learning comes into play, because the machine learning or AI will figure out what mood we're in that moment. If we're in a cat watching mood, then the algorithm will keep giving us cat watching stuff until that moment where we spend 0.05 less seconds watching this cat video, at which point the algorithm will figure out that we're kind of coming off this mood, and it will test us with some other stuff. And that way we always know that we're gonna get something that we want in this moment. And that is the uncertainty. We know that we're gonna get something that we like, but we're not sure how much we're gonna like it, and we're not sure what part of our personality it will tickle in that moment. And this slot machine effect makes it incredibly addictive, because you want more of the stuff that you like, and the algorithm figures out what you like. And this takes us nicely onto the next strategy that these companies use. And the second one is the Ovisiankina effect. Okay, sounds like a weird name, but what is the Ovisiankina effect? This effect is, or the underlying principle of it, is that we have a fundamental desire to complete tasks that have been interrupted without finishing them. So if there's a task, we haven't finished it, it creates a sort of uncomfortable tension wanting us to go back, or making us want to go back to complete that task. Now, ask yourself this question. Can you actually complete social media? Can you complete the internet? Remember back in the day when Instagram was in its early days, or Facebook was in its early days, and you kept scrolling down the feed of Instagram, and as you get to the bottom, it will tell you, well, you have come to the end of the feed, right? Coming to the end of the feed does not exist anymore. And this is a purposeful introduction, because it means that there is a form of endless scrolling to the point where you cannot complete it as a task. And so what will happen is, at whatever point you decide to come off your phone, so this is you are on your phone and you decide to come off, at any point on that line you decide to interrupt this task, then you have interrupted an incompleted task. And so that tension builds up, and it's gonna want you to come back and use your phone again. And you're gonna want to come back and use your phone again. Now, as this tension continues to build up within you, you feel a certain discomfort. And this is where the next sort of method or the next strategy comes in. And the next strategy is called the Zeigarnik effect. And the Zeigarnik effect, the underlying principle of it, is that when you interrupt an incomplete task, you will recall it much more readily than recalling a task that is already completed. And this plays in incredibly well into the cycle of keeping you coming back to your phone, because it is that tension earlier on that is gonna make you feel uncomfortable. You will much more readily remember that you haven't finished scrolling because you enjoyed it so much before, and it will make you much more easily triggered to come back. Any sort of boredom, any sort of moment where you feel like you're not doing anything, it will trigger you to come back and you'll recall being on your phone. It's almost like a habit building exercise. And I'll tell you something that is really interesting. What you see here is if I'm on TikTok at 13:00 and the last video I watched was of a giraffe in the safari. This is my beautiful drawing of a giraffe, and the video is of someone in a safari in Tanzania enjoying their time traveling, and you really like this video. When you close this app and you come back to this app at 21:00, what is the first thing that comes up on that app? It is the same giraffe video that you watched earlier. And the interesting thing here is that you're coming back to an interrupted task, exactly where you left off. You left off watching this giraffe video, and now when you open back your phone, you see this giraffe video in a safari, and you're continuing exactly where you left off. This is the Zeigarnik effect in place. You're recalling an interrupted task, you're coming back to it, you're more easily triggered to it, and you're coming back to the exact point where you were at before. Much more easily and readily continuing that scrolling. Now, the thing that I want to draw your attention to is that there is an interplay between all three of these effects. And all three of these effects leads you to being in the flow state. You have the slot machine effect, which means that you don't know exactly what you're gonna get, although you know that it's gonna be something that you like, which means then you go to the Ovisiankina effect. And the Ovisiankina effect will mean that you find it uncomfortable to interrupt that task. Or once it's interrupted, you feel a certain discomfort, which means that you much more readily remember that you've interrupted that task. And so you go back and you get something that you really like, which means you go back. And so you form this sort of triangle. And this triangle together means that you go into the flow state. Once you get into the flow state, then things become incredibly problematic, because we've all been in the situation where you're laying on your bed or you're sitting in a cafe, you're sitting on a train, and time becomes incredibly warped. It feels different. For example, this is where an hour feels like 15 minutes. 2 hours feels like 20 minutes. 3 hours feels like half an hour. The time perception has been changed in some way. And this is because you've entered into the flow state. In fact, when you're on your phone, right, I don't have my phone with me here right now, but if I'm on my phone here and I keep scrolling, this motion gets me into the flow state. I keep just scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, and it just becomes sort of flowing like a river. You get me? Understanding the interplay between all three effects to getting you into the flow state is important so that you can break the cycle. See, at this point, you're probably asking, Anas, you've told us all of these things, all this information about all these effects we might not have heard of before, or you may have heard of them. What can we do? Do you have any suggestions about what we can do in order to stop this from happening? And I have 3 suggestions for you today. The first thing is to gather some data. You want to make sure that any action you take is data-driven and evidence-based. We've all got a screen time measuring application to see exactly what our phone use is like. Like I said before, the flow state means that you lose a realistic perception of how time is passing. And so keeping an eye on how much time you're spending on your phone is important so that you know which areas to address. The screen time app on iPhone tells you which apps you're spending the most times on, and specifically how often you're picking up your phone, the pickup rate. So keeping an eye on that is very important. The second thing I would suggest is breaking the cycle every once in a while. every once in a while, you want to definitely go on this social media detox. What I find that is useful for me is I like to just delete these apps for a short period of time, essentially every single one except for WhatsApp, which is the one that I need for work, just so I, number one, can break the habit formation process so that I don't as easily get into the flow state when I'm scrolling on these apps. But number two, it also means that I know for myself that this is something that I can come off of. I would suggest that one of the worst things that you could feel in a situation like this is to feel helpless, to feel like you are someone who is so far deep into your phone and social media use, and your screen time is so high, 8, 9, 10 hours, that there is just no way that you're ever going to be able to come off these apps. So being able to break the cycle on a regular basis means that if at some point you decide that you want to completely cut yourself off, then that is something that you're able to do. You have the confidence to do that, and you know that you have the ability to do that. So if you want to use them every once in a while, then fair enough, but at least break the cycle every once in a while. One of the biggest triggers to a high pickup rate or picking up your phone all the time is boredom, when you feel like you have nothing to do. So it's important that you fill your time with productive things and interesting things to do that is outside of the technology world. For example, reading a book, or learning a language, or studying something different, or a sport, or lots of people are playing paddle these days. Go play paddle. Fill your time with something else so that you're not picking up your phone as often and you don't feel bored. This way you're going to reduce your screen time, you're going to be able to break the cycle every once in a while, and also you're filling your time with something else that is more productive than just being on your phone every day for 6, 7, 8 hours a day. So try these 3 things. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was useful. If you did like it, then like the video. We're trying a different format here, and if you're new to this channel, then my name is Anas. I'm a doctor working in the UK, and this is a channel where we talk about interesting and productive things to do with self-development and learning and that sort of thing. So thanks for watching. Safe.